Though we're discussing the threats of ransomware, we can't ignore the much greater danger caused by a government shutdown. The Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, for example, will be forced to furlough more than 80% of its workforce. As we say, we're concerned about cyber hacking and cyber threats. Without funding, our crucial federal cyber defenses will be reduced to a skeleton crew, and yet still hold responsibilities to respond to attacks on our networks and critical infrastructure. We can't allow this to happen when we already know of the innumerable malware attacks constantly threatening our economy, schools, public health, critical infrastructure, and national security. Ransomware is a burgeoning multi-billion-dollar criminal industry. In 2021, the estimated cost of ransomware damage globally hovered around $20 billion. This year, that number is $30 billion, a 50% increase in just 2 years. The United States is a major target. Between January and December of 2022, known ransomware attacks on public and private networks in the United States increased by 47%. More troubling, these tallies include only those incidents victims report. While the recent MGM Resorts International hack received considerable public attention, these kinds of ransomware attacks also target critical infrastructure. In 2021, for example, the United States government had to declare a regional emergency, as you noted, Madam Chairwoman, after the Colonial Pipeline was taken down, the largest fuel pipeline system in the country. That incident was just one frightening reminder of what's at stake. State and local governments are particularly vulnerable because they're responsible for storing much of our personally identifiable information, but they lack the cybersecurity resources and protections and funding as billion-dollar conglomerates. Criminals also do not discriminate between large metro areas and small towns. Communities of all sizes have been victims, including Dallas, Texas, Oakland, California, and Lowell, Massachusetts. A 2023 ransomware report from Sophos found that nearly 70% of the surveyed IT leaders in state and local governments reported ransomware attacks. Just as troubling, the report found that educational systems are the most likely to be targeted. I ask unanimous consent, Madam Chair, to insert this report into the hearing record.
Without objection.
I thank the Chair. I know this firsthand from when a ransomware attack in 2020 targeted the Fairfax County Public School System, the 10th largest school system in America, which I represent. Members of this committee are well aware of how the coronavirus pandemic abruptly revealed how ill-prepared many of our state and local governments were in delivering vital public services securely and remotely through their IT platforms. Criminals took advantage of that in unemployment systems, in direct checks, payments to families, in small business loans, and on and on. That's why during my tenure as chairman of the Government Operations Subcommittee, which included this subcommittee, we held hearings on the outdated IT infrastructure and rising cyber attacks on state and local governments. The hearing examined the role of Congress and the Federal Government in accelerating IT modernization initiatives. In response to the hearing, we introduced House Companion to the Senate's State and Local Digital Service Act. This important legislation provided guidance and, critically, funding for state and local governments to form digital service teams focused on delivering fair, effective, and secure public services. I certainly hope this Congress will continue that work. Furthermore, we helped to champion the bipartisan infrastructure bill, providing more than $1 billion in vital investments to assist both public and private entities who fall victim to cyber attacks every year. Earlier this year, the Biden-Harris administration also published its national cybersecurity strategy, which addresses these, among other issues, head-on by laying out an action plan to disrupt ransomware criminals. It lays out 4 key pillars to disrupt them by 1, leveraging international cooperation to disrupt this ecosystem, their ransomware ecosystem, that is, and isolate those countries that provide safe havens. 2, investigating ransomware crimes and using law enforcement and other authorities to disrupt it and them. And third, bolstering critical infrastructure resilience to withstand such attacks. And fourth, addressing the abuse of virtual currency to launder ransom payments. The Department of Justice also continues to hold ransomware criminals accountable, and most recently, dismantling the CACBot, or Quackbot, network and seizing more than $8.6 million in cryptocurrency profits. That's great, but it's a modest start. While these are important first steps, much more has to be done, and I know we're going to hear that from our witnesses today. I look forward to hearing the testimony and working with you, Madam Chairwoman, and Mr. Fallon and others, and of course Ms. Brown, in trying to craft thoughtful solutions to deter and ultimately prevent ransomware attacks. And I thank you. I yield back.